As I see it, the challenges are for Joe Biden not to have a senior moment and for Donald Trump not to be a jerk, all right, to put it nicely. And I don't just mean like being tough is fine. Being a douchebag, okay, I went not nice, is something else entirely, right? So he needs to not be a douchebag, and the one guy needs to not be a douchebag and the other guy needs to not die. Those are kind of, succinctly put, the stakes, the challenges of the evening. How do you guys see it? Moynihan, how about you?
The odds of both of those things happening are very, very high. And you said die, I'm thinking maybe stroke on stage, a series of cascading mini strokes in which America cringes their way through it. No, Donald Trump, see, the thing about it is...
Kmele is laughing. Kmele's covering his eyes. He's laughing.
Being a douchebag is kind of what Donald Trump does. And it's quite effective. Yeah, it's a superpower. And it's effective sometimes. And we were talking about this on the show last night, is it reminded me of that time when the late night shows, including people like Bill Maher, were doing their monologues outside in their house during COVID because they could have no audiences. And then you realized how difficult comedy was when there was no audience, when there's no one to react to. And Donald Trump is very good at playing at the audience. And I've been watching old debates, and it's like, you have the moderators saying, no applause, no nothing. And people are laughing, and it just amps him up. You see him doubling down on these jokes, particularly the second Hillary Clinton debate, which I watched this morning, which I recommend people watch it, not just losers and nerds like me. It is amazingly entertaining, but the audience is an integral part of that. So, Donald Trump is obviously relying upon Joe Biden keeling over on stage, and he just looks over at his slumped body and says, see? He's old and he might even be dead right now. That is his. But, for them, it's like when in a silent audience, when he is, if Joe Biden is cognizant, and Donald Trump is already kind of foreseeing that he might be and saying, he's juiced up on Adderall and the rest of it, which might be true. And there's nothing wrong with that. And and the thing is that if Donald Trump is doing this and it's to nothing, to me, it doesn't work as well. That's how he's so good on stage. When he walks behind Hillary Clinton in that second debate, like he's stalking her, absolutely brilliant. And then he says, you'd be in jail, is one of the greatest moments.
We have that here. Let's watch it.
It's so good.
Let's play it. Here's SOT 11.
And after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails. And then you acid wash them or bleach them, as you would say. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? It is, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Oh my God. It's so funny. It's terrible.
It's the response at the Apollo. It's like, oh, no, you didn't. It's great. It's so good. It works as a political moment. And
you're right. The audience is better for Trump. He's going to do it with or without the audience.
So good. Yeah.
Correct. He knows the audience at home is going to be listening and enjoying and all of it. Go ahead.
I think that he's taking an interesting gamble by agreeing to all these kind of rules that take away those natural advantages. But part of his gamble, I would imagine, is that he wants this to be unfair against him. One of the things that binds his coalition together, that bound Republicans together long before Donald Trump showed up, but it's really part of it now, is a sense of a grievedness towards the media, that the media creates unfair rules. And one of the things that you do, that you notice when you go back and look at other debates in the past, and I was looking a lot at the first debate last time around between Biden and Trump with Chris Wallace moderating, sometimes it can be pretty loaded against certainly Donald Trump and also Republicans in a way that screams out as being kind of unfair. There's a lot of in CNN and Jake Tapper, who I have a ton of respect for, but CNN nonetheless has been spending the last 8 years adding the without evidence. Anytime someone who is either Trump or Trump-like talks, they sometimes boot people off air if they are seen to be January 6th election denialist, or however they might term it. And so I think one of the great challenges for Tapper in particular is to not fall into the, sir, we're fact checking you now, and that's just not so kind of thing. I predict that that's going to happen happen. And if and when it does, it'll be perceived by the political class as a Trump losing situation, but I think it'll be perceived by the audience, what audience that is there. And it's not clear that there's going to be a ton of people tuning into this, but it's going to be perceived as yet another example of why the deck is stacked against, 46% of the country.
There will be a ton of people tuning in for this. This is like, there's nothing going on in the news right now. It's a relatively quiet week, a couple of Supreme Court opinions. There's not a lot of other news outside of it. It's a slow summer period, but we're not peak summer. It's not 4th of July. People are going to watch this. It's the presidency. It's the most consequential election in recent history. And this is probably the only time they're going to be together. Certainly the only time that's guaranteed, because they may bail before the September one with ABC. The Politico had an article out today saying 70% of American voters say they plan to tune in. These will be ratings unlike CNN has ever seen in its history, if that is true. I mean, they pulled in big ratings when Trump was a participant in GOP primary debates, but to have a general election debate, primarily, anchored by CNN and on the other channels as well, to CNN's credit, it allowed everybody to have access to it, to air it on their own feeds. What's normally done when they do a debate through the Commission on Presidential Debates. But CNN got this thing. It was an exclusive. They didn't have to do that. It's good that they did. Everyone's going to tune in. They are going to want to see these two go head to head for the reasons we kicked it off with, right? Like, can Biden do it? That's one of the questions. Can he do it? Can he make it 90 minutes? And to see Trump, like, what version of him are we going to get? Are we going to get magnanimous Trump, or are we going to get feisty Trump? Are we going to get the one who took out Jeb Bush and was, lowbrow in sort of a great way with Hillary Clinton? Or are we going to get the one who sometimes tries to be presidential and charming and smiles a lot and is trying to appeal to those women and independent voters that would really help him? Kmele, CNN does have a lot at stake tonight, but the truth is, for once, we really do have the two candidates with everything to win or lose. The latest polls show that only 83% of the voters have made up their minds at this point. Only 83. That leaves 17% potentially still up for grabs. Some have put it as many as 1 in 4, so it could be up to 25% undecided. And so this may be their one and only chance to decide which one of these guys they prefer. And Kmele, it's not like they don't understand what's at issue. They have their partisan stripes. These are obviously non-hard partisans who are still in the I don't know camp. But they're looking at these guys thinking Biden is too old and Trump has terrible temperament. And they're wanting to see which problem is worse in these 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to know, though, if this debate is actually a great crucible for trying to determine what's going on in this particular contest. You've got this cavernous studio that both men are going to be standing next to each other in, all these bizarre rules. You'll kind of sort of hear Trump trying to butt in. And I expect at some moment you'll see Biden kind of old, stammering, trying to get his thoughts together in some distant voice, just kind of whispering horrible expletives, and Biden almost reacting and responding to them in real time. Would you stop? Would you shut up? It could turn out to be completely nuts. And all of that will be CNN's fault in some respect. And rather than getting the excellent television that Moynihan alluded to earlier, where someone is stalking the stage while their opponent talks, you've got this bizarre experience where someone is moving their mouths on camera and you can't actually hear what they're saying. And you're straining to make that out while ignoring what the person who actually has the hot mic is saying. This seems like it could be a complete catastrophe for CNN, but maybe it turns out to be great. I do know that it seems like they've got all sorts of weird terms that the various networks have to obey with respect to how they refer to the debate, the CNN debate, and they won't permit the various election debate coordinators to show up and be in the studio. Again, a cavernous, bubble debate, a la the NBA bubble. There were questions about that forever. There will be questions about this forever in much the same way. Again, unless someone keels over and dies, which seems to me like a decent probability.
Credit card rewards like cash back can empower families with some extra savings while they're dealing with the rising price of groceries and gas and all the rest of it. But our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, says some DC politicians are partnering with corporate megastores to take the cashback rewards away from families during skyrocketing inflation. Specifically, they say that the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would take billions from American families, lining corporate pockets instead. Learn more at electronicpaymentscoalition.org and see for yourself if you want to protect credit card rewards and tell DC politicians to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. That's electronicpaymentscoalition.org. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.